Hey guys, welcome back to Metanoia. My name is Carrie Jane, and today I'm doing something that I don't get to do often on my channel, and that is simply have fun. I spend a better part of the time just making videos for you guys that are informational, stuff based on areas of consciousness, especially with numerology, that are useful to you, something that pertains to you personally, or something that is more like a philosophical exploration of something that we can have a discussion on, etc. It's very rare that I make something that is related to pop culture or just something for fun, and that's it. And today I am doing that, and I can already hear the comments. People taking it too seriously. No, I don't identify with this character. No, I'm not like this, etc. And if that's you, you've missed the point, okay? This is an entertainment video. This is not an instructional video. Nonetheless, I hope you guys enjoy what I've made today. And I am also making this video with the consideration that a lot of you who have clicked this video may not necessarily be from my channel. Maybe you are a fan of the Umbrella Academy and this somehow found its way to your recommendations on YouTube. So, hi, my name is Carrie Jane. I'm a numerologist on Metanoia. I make videos on consciousness and especially numerology. That's kind of what I'm known for on here, YouTube specifically. So welcome, please subscribe, and please comment below your thoughts on what's going to happen today. Also, you need to know, but really, you need to know that this is going to have a lot of spoilers. So if you've never heard of the Umbrella Academy before, or perhaps you've been waiting to watch season 2 of the Umbrella Academy on Netflix, please don't watch this video. Enjoy the show first. So stop what you're doing and go to Netflix right now. You should know what Umbrella Academy is, in my opinion. Like, it's a very interesting show. It's very unique. Netflix Originals does an amazing job, in my opinion. So yeah, don't watch this video if you don't want it to be spoiled for you. So let's begin with explaining the premises of the Umbrella Academy for those of you who would like to still watch this video. Maybe you're not interested in watching it, but it's still good for you to know what's going on. In the world of the Umbrella Academy, there are 43 children born on the same day, October 1st, 1989, and they're born in a very mysterious way. These women were going about their daily lives, didn't know they were pregnant, didn't show signs of pregnancy, and then bam, a baby comes out of them. Very weird, but very interesting. A guy named Sir Reginald takes a keen interest in these 43 children, travels around the world collecting them, manages to get 7 of these children, and raises them. He kind of types them as their number, or gives them a number 1 through 7, and although they do have their own names as well, they are also called by their number. So, 2 things. I'm going to be talking about these characters through the lens of as if this was, I should say, their life path number. This number that Sir Reginald gave them. Some of you, my viewers, 8 and 9 life paths might be like, well, what about me? Don't worry, I've chosen characters in this story to compare with to your life path number so that you guys are included. Second thing, I can hear a lot of you say, but they're born all in the same day. Listen. Yeah, technically, I guess they're all a 2 life path. Technically, they all have the same exact life path in this universe, but we're not talking about this universe. We're talking about the universe of the Umbrella Academy. And as I was watching this series, I remember in the first season, it was like a while ago now, I started to notice very mysterious similarities between their typed categorical number and the life path number that they have or don't have, just They all seem to have mysterious commonalities with the vibration of their number that they were given. Okay? That's it. I mean, there were a few that are not like that very much, and we'll talk about that. But then season 2 rolled through, and I couldn't ignore it. I'm like, this is weird. It's almost as if the creator potentially used numerology to help create these characters, and I became very interested in this and wanted to make a video. And the reason why, or one of the reasons why, this really piqued my interest and my curiosity is not just because I'm a numerologist, but because I myself am using numerology to help write the characters in the book that I'm writing right now, Metanoia. So, this is kind of like why I'm like looking out for these things, and that explains a little bit of why, you know, you shouldn't really get caught on the fact that technically they all have the same life path number in that universe. It's more like this is a fictional creation, right? Okay, what was the person creating thinking while they were writing it? Did they use numerology to help write the characters? If not, it's kind of a spooky coincidence, and you're about to see how that is. We have a lot of characters to go through in this video, so I'm going to stop rambling and just get right to it now. We start with number 1, Luther, aka Space Boy, played by Tom Harper. It was really hard getting screenshots of this guy. I don't know why, but he just has like weird facial expressions throughout the entire series. Like I said, I don't know why. It's kind of funny, but whatever I end up putting over here, hopefully it's okay. The one life path is called the leader. Luther is kind of looked up to, or rather given the job of literally being the leader in the group. So you can see where we're starting here. And I mean that, okay, this is not something that is necessarily a big coincidence, because in many cases the numerological meaning of the number 1 is exactly what you would think of it, even if you didn't know anything about numerology. Even if you didn't know the deeper esoteric meaning of the number 1. You know, for example, you look at the number 1, maybe you're not a numerologist or you don't know anything about numerology. You're like, number 1, you're on step 1. We have the phrase number 1, be number 1, okay, so that's someone who is striving for success, okay. Maybe someone who's very independent, okay. So like, it's one of the numbers in numerology that are very, like, at face value, you can kind of, like, get a sense of what it's about. Of course, not everything, but yeah, okay. So perhaps number 1, Space Boy, is, maybe it's not as spooky as it is with the other numbers to have this weird correlation that number 1, the leader, the life path, is this guy, Luther. For the one life path, a lot of the times, especially if they are a textbook 1, their worth is kind of determined, at least to themselves, by their success. And a lot of the times, I think I talked about this in the one life path child a lot. The one tends to have this strange relationship with their parents where if there's not this adequate trust, it creates problems within the person. But I've also seen instances where, this person, if they have this certain kind of relationship with their parents where for whatever reason they just can't get the approval that they want, or they can't have a good relationship with their parents because they don't see them working really hard, and they don't see their child basically in the way that the child is trying the best that they can to basically fulfill their purpose, which is to strive in whatever they choose and whatever path they end up being on. And in the actual series, Luther is sent to the moon by his father and spends a good part of his life there just for him. And it becomes this thing in the story where he ends up having a very, very bitter attitude towards his father after death when he learns how and why he was there on the moon the entire time. and it messes him up. And there's just like this running joke that Luther has daddy issues. And also we see that in some other characters. But in the way that Luther expresses this, where it's more like he had a job to do, he took it very seriously. He says, I'm the leader of the group and I need to lead by example and prove my worth to my father. Like, that's kind of like where his character started. Of course, season 2 happens and we see a bit of an evolution in him and things are a little bit different. But yeah, I could see the one life path being exactly in that kind of situation. And yeah, that's weird to me. Another thing is that Luther's power is brute strength. It is a very rudimentary power. There's not a lot of bells and whistles to it. It's very straightforward. He can pick shit up and throw it very far. Something like brute strength would be a kind of number one power if there were one. If I was an author and making a fictional universe, that's what I would choose for something like the number one. I would choose someone who could be a good leader in a group, and perhaps they aren't the power that seems the most flashy, but they get the job done for everyone and they're looking out for everyone. And that's just basically Luther's character. Let me know what you think about that. Another interesting thing I just want to mention is that I think that Luther and number 5, which we'll be talking about soon, are twin brothers. And 1, 5, and 7 are always grouped together in kind of like the same category of like numbers of the intellect. So there is kind of like a tightly knit relationship between those numbers. So it's interesting how that worked out. What we see in season 2, by the way, is that, you know, in season 1, he was kind of like having a lot of struggles, understandably, but in season 2, he really does end up stepping up for his family, and he does a lot more, and you can kind of see that leadership shine through finally. And I loved watching it, not just from a numerological perspective. I liked seeing his character move forward in that way. So the next character is number 2. Who is called Diego, and also I think he's known as the Kraken in the Umbrella Academy universe. David Castaneda, I think is how you pronounce that, plays this character. And his superpower is very, very tactful knife throwing. Like, he can just throw that thing and it ends up anywhere. And I think he can also hold his breath for a very long period of time. I found that on a fandom. Don't know if it's true or not, but that's what the fandom says. The 2 life path, just to preface this, is a very emotional number. They're very sensitive, and they are the mediator. They are meant to, with their sensitivities, bring people together. But what do we see in this character in the first season, perhaps, and then maybe into the second season? We see someone who's very brash, like just removed, kind of acting like they don't need anyone, kind of acting like someone who's insensitive. But deep down, when we get to know this character, we find out they are extremely emotional, and he does care. And we learn that also he has a very, very deep emotional attachment to his mom. In fact, he's the character that has, I think, the deepest relationship with the mother figure in this story, which is a very, very, very 2 thing. And the 2 life path, I have met many, many 2 life paths who struggled early on in life from age 0 and into their 20s, sometimes 30s even, with their parents, because they just loved their parents so much and they just did everything to get their acceptance. And although he wasn't really a fan of the dad, of Sir Reginald, he did find this in the mother in the story, Grace. So that's something worth mentioning. In the second season, we start to see this mediator come through a little bit. First of all, before I go into that, actually, I should mention that 2 life paths just have a way of attracting toxic relationships. I don't know why, but I've seen that a lot. They tend to attract narcissists. I've said that before in previous videos about them. I think because they're so kind and loving and giving, like a narcissist is attracted to that really, and they're kind of like naive in love, so they don't really stand up for themselves a lot of the times. But in the context of this character, yeah, we see him getting into a relationship that was in the beginning not really based on anything healthy with Lila. And when season 2 arrives, because of his relationship with Lila, he ends up in this situation where he's able to learn a piece of information where he can then take that information and help basically save them all from the apocalypse, which is another thing that is happening in that it happens again. If you watch season 1, that was basically what was happening the whole time, and guess what? Now they're like thrown into this completely different situation, and it is actually just continued, not stopped. And so he learns this piece of information, and he takes it to his family, and with his family, he's able to work together to try to help this situation finally. We see them finally working together. So this is kind of a way that he finally ends up being the mediator. And even though he in the beginning especially acts like this person who just works by themselves and doesn't really care about anyone, he obviously does care, and it's shown in these actions. He does also have a hero complex that's articulated in the story. He's always kind of trying to save the day. Again, that's tied to like actually you are a deeply emotional person who really just wants to help. And yeah. At the very end of season 2, we see him being the mediator even more, in that he tries to mend the ties with the toxic relationship he had with Lila, the best that he can with what happens, and kind of invites her into the family, and that's a very true thing to do. And the mediator is basically a very diplomatic person who can see very many sides. Perhaps that's why they get into so many different kinds of relationships and even narcissistic relationships, because you can understand different perspectives better when you have that emotional sensitivity. And that is supposed to be used to help unite. And that's kind of like what he did there at the end. So that's enough about Diego. Let's move on to the next character. And this character was where I basically was just like, yes, absolutely, they used numerology. The creators came together, the original creator and the people who were involved in Netflix came together and were like, yes, let's help learn about the number 3 to help develop this character, because the translation is just so literal. Here we have Allison, aka the Rumor, and this is played by Emmy Raver Lampman, I think. Again, I don't know these names, so I just kind of like textbook learned them. But anyway, her superpower is through her voice, being able to control people. She says, "I heard a rumor," and then like literally anything. And she makes it so. So like she speaks this, whatever she wants to happen, and the person can't not do it. She can also like affect physical reality through the superpower. She basically, I think in season 2, we see her say, "I heard a rumor, this blew your mind," or something like that. And you like, their heads explode. So very, very powerful superpower if you ask me. But the reason why this translates so literally to the 3 is because the 3 is the communicator. The 3 is about self-expression, and even in the shadow of the 3, when a 3 is not healthy, acting out of their shadow, they're very gossipy, they're very into rumors, and they're very into exaggerating things and things like that. So it's just so interesting that it's like that. Her powers literally say, "I heard a rumor that," and like, it's so literal is all I'm gonna say. It's so strange. But going deeper into the character, we see someone who is extremely compassionate, extremely kind, and I think we see this largely because of her past, where she used that power to do a lot of awful, awful things, and eventually ended up, unfortunately, using it on her daughter in a negative way, and turned a new leaf after that, and the three is a very changeable character. Like, they're not very fixed like the other life path numbers are. I have seen 3 life paths be able to change very easily. Once they see what they've done and the impact it has, they are malleable in that way. So Allison kind of learns to reflect on her actions and change and realize the true impact of what she's doing when she uses her abilities. And we also see a character who can be very moody, and I think that's when we see her power lash out, is when she kind of has a moment where she can't control herself in a way, and she does kind of lash out a bit and do things, but you really kind of have to push her to that level. But the 3 can be very moody as well. And the 3 can also, when, like I said, they're on the negative side of their vibration, or perhaps not even in the negative side of their vibration, when you're on a path, you find yourself in situations, and I've seen the 3 life paths experience a lot of drama in their lives, half because they kind of like it like that, half just because of the kind of person that they are. And that's not necessarily a bad thing all the time, but it is also a little bit exhausting, and her life it has a lot of drama in it, It has a lot of domestic stuff. In season 1, we see that, and then she finds, another husband in season 2, and that is definitely a more stable relationship built on actual trust and purpose, which is beautiful. So she, has this evolution where she changes, of course, but it's just something that I noticed too that was worth mentioning. And she always is very fashionable. Her hair is always amazing. She's wearing always something very nice and suited towards her, and that's another kind of textbook thing that people like to talk about with the 3 life path, is that they like to be performance ready. So maybe they don't like to dress up so much, but they like to look presentable and be ready often, not always. And that's just something that we see there as well. The next character we have is Klaus, and wow, what an amazing character. I love Klaus. He's played by Robert Sheehan, and he's known as the Seance. So he has the power to basically conjure the dead. He can speak to the dead. In season 2, we learn that he can be possessed. So he's basically an access to the afterlife. And unfortunately, we don't get to see much of his true character throughout the series because he is addicted to drugs and alcohol, and that is because, quite literally, between his power and his traumatic childhood is haunted every single day. And so he escapes through drugs and alcohol, and it's very rare that we see him beyond this, where he's just trying to escape. And the abuse of drugs and alcohol is not limited to any life path number, although the 5 life paths are the escape artists for sure. But any human being who has trauma is gonna try to escape, and we see that in Klaus. So we unfortunately don't get to see a lot of his true character because of this. But when we do, we kind of do see the 4 life path, and the 4 life path is the teacher. Often he's extremely sarcastic, but maybe that's just, well, first of all, it's because of pain, but second of all, maybe he's overwhelmingly observant, like the 4, and realistic. When I know I'm like that a lot of the time, because I think when you see things for what they are, you kind of become blasé about it, which is him, and he's kind of like the comic relief through a lot of scenes. But really, if we want to try to get to the root of the character, a lot of the times people are like that just because they know a little bit too much. And the 4 is, like I've said before, a bit like a wise toddler. So open to love, a little bit naive, and yet they have deep insights once you get at them. And if, Klaus was not abusing alcohol and didn't have a traumatic past, maybe he would be like this. The 4 is also the problem solver. And Klaus, in the few seconds that he's not running from himself and his past, he does kind of, in certain situations, act as the voice of reason. So I find that to be very interesting. The 4 just wants to help. They want to give advice because they're the problem solver. They know if they fix a certain situation, they'll feel better about it. And when he finally does find love, Klaus, and has a deep connection the first time in his life, and he ends up traveling back in time, he finds that person and tries to help them. And I mean, okay, who wouldn't? But why is he doing that is a good question to ask, and that's up to you. That's not really up to me. Other than just he loves this person and he wants to not have them experience the fate he knows that he's going to have. Now we have number 5, who, for whatever reason, is just called number 5, and he's played by Aidan Gallagher, and this is my favorite character, and it just so happens that I'm a 5 life path, so yeah, I can identify with a lot of this character's attributes. In the story, the superpower that number 5 has is he can travel through space and time. The 5 is the adventurer. They're known for experiences, often through travel. They are travelers. You could even call them the traveler if you wanted to. Very interesting. But at this point, I'm just these are the life path numbers. That's where I'm at now. But really, still approaching this with skepticism as to how this happened. I digress. 5. Okay. So he's also known as the boy in the Umbrella Academy, and that is because he, like many hot-tempered 5 life paths, they can be very hot-tempered, and just generally they are about freedom. If you try to take that away from them, they get angry about it. Stands up to his father and is like, I'm ready for time travel. I know that I am. His father says, no, it's unpredictable. You're not ready. We can't do this. The 5, like they always do, says, fuck you. He ends up doing it anyway. And he gets stuck in the future, in a post-apocalyptic future, and ages there, and is eventually taken down another path. But anyway, when he comes back to the timeline of the story, he's in his 50s. So you have a boy with the consciousness of a man who's in their 50s. And I can say it's kind of like that sometimes, coming from a 5 life path. And the 5 is very witty. They're very on point with everything. They're the investigators, and he is always kind of the mastermind behind everything. He's always the one with the ideas behind everything. He's always the one who's ahead, that's trying to just catch everyone up, because he's also the oldest technically, even though he's represented as a boy. And I just love that. I just love that happened, that we have the idea of a old man in a tiny person's body. So yeah, what's also worth mentioning here is that he gets a little nutty, but yet he survives. 5s are very, very, very adaptable. That is their mastery, is really being able to adapt to changing times, because the 5 is about entropy and change. And he has this adaptability and mental fortitude to survive this experience. He is able to somehow stay out of harm's way at every turn. He is able to, have a mind still after basically a lifetime of isolation and if there's anyone I think that could do that, I think it's the 5 life path, and that's worth saying here. But also the 5, who, like I said in the beginning, is kind of hot-tempered. Poor 5. He's just outraged in the entirety of season 2 because everyone has had years to adjust to like the time, and they have new lives now. But for 5, it's just been like the same day. Like he's just had a really bad 2 weeks and is trying to get everyone together and get them to focus and try to like save the world again and get back home, and like he's he's just angry most of the time. And I thought it was hilarious, honestly, to watch. And 5 is my favorite character. I think the actor, Aidan Gallagher, did an amazing job. And he is basically like the character that's kind of pushes everything forward too. Like he is kind of the agent of chaos. He's kind of like the agent of like why things are happening in the first place, because without him, the whole time traveling thing wouldn't have happened in the first place. But that's not really related to the number 5 or anything like that. I just wanted to mention that. But let's talk about number 6 now, who is Ben. And just like for Klaus, it's hard to see who Ben is because he's dead. He's dead in the storyline. He's kind of like this elusive character, and we can't really see him without Klaus. So he's always with Klaus. And similar to Klaus as well, his superpower is hard to see how it would relate to the number 6. Like, for example, being a seance, I don't think I could assign that to any number, that particular power. I wouldn't say that's like a 4 thing, but maybe you could. Maybe anyone in the comments could develop a connection there. So similar with Ben, his power doesn't really relate to the number he has, in my opinion, and he's the horror. He can kind of like summon creatures through his body to like kill stuff and destroy things. Very random. Very cool. But yeah, I don't see that being, I wouldn't be able to assign that to a number either. That's just very random. But anyway, the thing that we do see with Ben that is very much attributed to the energy of 6 is that he's very kind and compassionate, and the 6 is the nurturer. They are a parent to their family members, to their friends, to their pets. They are a parent. We kind of see that with Ben, with Klaus, because he's always disapproving of Klaus's actions, and he's always trying to help him. He cares about him. And when he died, he could have left permanently, but he didn't. He stayed for his family. And at the end, we see him basically make his final sacrifice be for his family and for the greater good. And that is what I would expect a 6 life path to do. I would expect a 6 life path to ghost around their family because they're worried about how they're doing, because they are like a mom and a dad to everyone. So unfortunately, that's all I have to say about Ben's character because of the nature of his role, which is being dead, unfortunately, throughout that storyline. And, I would like to mention that he's played by Justin H. Min, M-I-N, and we might see more of him in Season 3. The way that Season 2 ended, it would be really interesting to see that character come forward and see how they are in that timeline and what happens. That's all I'm going to say. But I'm trying the best I can not have too many spoilers in here. But like I said, it's just, I'm going to end up exposing more stuff eventually just because I have to explain certain people. So, let's move on to the next character. We have number 7, Vanya. And I think she's also known as the White Violin. She is played by Ellen Page. And the 7 life path is the Faith Seeker. The number 7 is a very, very introspective, quiet number, and that's kind of how her character is. She is not confident and painfully shy, unfortunately, and you do not in any way need to be introspective to be those things. That's kind of just her life circumstance. What happened to her made her like that, made her lack confidence, etc. But she is, despite that, a very, very deep person. She ends up writing a book, and that is a very 7 thing to do. They are often associated with the written word. That's another thing worth mentioning. I'm just kind of like going through the bits and pieces of it before I get to the major part, which is her superpower. She is the destructive force always in this series, and what had happened to her was Sir Reginald discovered her power and how unpredictable it was, thought that it was best to make it so that she couldn't remember who she was or what power she had, really, just like what power she had, and unfortunately take that away from her because he saw her as too big of a threat. But that eventually surfaces, and even though she was taking pills to suppress her power, we see it eventually, and it is basically, she can do all kinds of stuff, but basically at its essence is the manipulation of sound. She has like telekinesis. She can basically, sound does a lot of stuff apparently. She can make, I think, force fields around things. It's a power that gives her many, many abilities, and she ends up, unfortunately, because of how her abilities are mainly affected by her emotions, ends up being extremely destructive and does some horrible things. And getting back to the 7, she, I think, in my opinion, from what I've seen, at least the way I'm interpreting this, kind of struggles with her place in life, kind of struggles with her purpose, and that is a very 7 thing. The 7 is on a long journey of self-exploration. They're gonna discover some interesting things, especially later in life. That often happens, and they turn a new leaf and end up doing something else, and that is kind of the depth of the faith-seeking number. It is a deep inward journey, and she sure has that, because from the get-go, she did not have a good time. She was not included in the family, so she was ostracized in that way and was kind of forced to be the introvert even in that experience. And because of that, we see a person who has to learn how to control their emotions and really needs to learn who they are and where they stand, because they kind of like had to be spineless for a long period of time because of the situation that she was in. And that's a very deep journey that I would associate with the 7 life path. In season 2, I wrote here, we also see her have a telepathic link with someone, and the 7 is the most mind-oriented, most like psychologically oriented and intellectually oriented number out of all the numbers, and 1, 5, and 7 being a part of that group, but 7 being kind of like the face of that. So, very interesting character. There's a lot more we could probably say about her, but I want to move now on to 8 and 9. Like I said in the beginning of this video, there's no 8 or 9 within that family of superhumans, but I chose some characters in the story that I would associate with the 8 and 9 life paths. And if you've watched the series, you're not going to be surprised about this probably, but the person I have chosen for the 8 life path is the handler. And the 8 life path is the executive. Need I say more? She's a boss-ass bitch. She is the character in the story that is about power, and the number 8 is about power. It's about being in like a manager position. It's about everything involved with the material world, and so because of this, a lot of the times the 8 life path enjoys the finer things in life, the quality of life. They like nice things, and we see the handler doing this in many situations. She always has these top-notch outfits. We see her enjoying bubble baths and, champagne or whatever, and kind of like enjoying food while she's on this rampage for power. And it's just, there's no other, she is an 8. I would characterize her as an 8 life path for sure. Also, again, sorry I keep forgetting to say this, the character is played by Kate Walsh. She did an amazing job. And Diego, at the end of season 2, I think perfectly sums her up. He says the only thing she loves is power. And when the 8 life path is on their shadow side, it will sometimes be like that. It may not necessarily be a concern with what they're doing, how they're doing it. They want what they want, and they're going to be the executive, and they're going to get it no matter what. So Diego did a great job in explaining that character in the last season, and that brings me to, not the last season, the last episode of season 2, because the seasons are moving forward, but that brings me to number 9, the person I've chosen for the 9 life path, and that is Lila. Are we surprised? Lila is, like I said in the beginning, in a relationship with Diego, and the 9 life path is the humanitarian. I have talked about this in previous videos about the 9, and that is that there's this really interesting quality about the 9 that I can't really explain, and that is that whatever number that you put in front of the 9 ends up adding to that number. So for example, you have the number 92. 9 plus 2 equals 11. 1 plus 1 equals 2. Okay, so that 2 in front of the 9 is what it is. 9 plus 4. 9 plus 4 is 13. 1 plus 3 is 4, so on and so forth. The 9 has this interesting mirroring quality, and in numerology, they are considered the evolved point in the 1 through 9 sequence. It's possible that when they're acting through the true essence of the 9, they are exhibiting all the numbers. They have characteristics or traits of all the numbers. And then, spoiler alert big time, we discover in season 2 that she has a power, and that is that she can take on the power of whoever's in front of her, one at a time, but she can do it. And so she mirrors their power. So I'm choosing number 9 as Lila in this story. There was also something that Lila said in the last episode where we see that she has this power, and she says, anything you can do, I can do better, like as a joke, while she's, on her rampage. And that is a very 9 thing to say. Again, a lot of people are like acting through their shadows, like in this story, because it's a story and a person is multidimensional, and they're shown like that in fiction, if it's good fiction. And we see that this person basically has like a little bit of an ego, complex in that way. It's kind of like, I can do anything, and I can do it better than you, and I'm the best. And I've seen 9 life paths to have that kind of quality a lot of the time. I think when you do get it to a certain point of your evolution, you do have a lot of tools in your toolbox, and you can use them. And then if you are not in the right state of mind, if you're not living in a healthy manner, and you're not like grounded in any way, you're going to eventually think like, I'm better than everyone else, and I actually know all the answers and everyone else doesn't. And I unfortunately have seen that in a lot of 9 life paths. It's something to try to just be aware of, because I think it's easy to get like that when you're not looking at yourself a lot of the time. And that can happen to anyone, not just 9 life paths. That happens to most people at some point in their lives. So that is all for today. Please let me know how you liked this video, because I could also make another video explaining the relationship dynamics of these characters and how true they are to their chosen number. And I could also do this with other movies or other shows and anything else in pop culture. So if there's something that you'd like me to look out or make a video on regarding that, let me know. I don't know how you guys are going to receive this, because like I said at the beginning, like, I don't usually make these kinds of videos, so I have no idea what to expect out of this. But nonetheless, I had a great time thinking about this. I had a great time kind of like planning this video and executing it, and I hope that this was interesting to you. And let me know if you like the Umbrella Academy, what your favorite character is, what you thought of season 2. If you don't like it, even that's fine. Like, you're entitled to your opinion. You don't have to like the show, but I highly recommend it. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you all soon. Take care, guys. Bye.
If you liked this video and would like to see more, consider becoming a patron to Metanoia. Even just $1 a month is an enormous help for longer projects like this. It does take quite a bit of time. The link is patreon.com/metanoia, or just visit the links in the description. If you would like a reading with me, the link to that is also in the description, or just share my videos with anyone who might be interested in them. By the time you see this, I might already have a lot of other kinds of content on my channel other than numerology, and I'm always making playlists. Adding to those playlists. If you're new to this channel, be sure to check out my content there. Who knows, you might be interested in something new other than whatever brought you here. So thank you all so much, and I hope that this was fun for you guys as it was for me.